Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. It is October 2nd, and this is Fitness Athlete Friday. I'm your host today, Dr. Zach Long. Excited to be talking to you today about accessory strength programs for the CrossFit athlete. If you start to become really well known in the CrossFit world as a physical therapist, that is good at working with these athletes and has a skill set and specialty working with them, you're going to have a lot of athletes that start to ask you about what strength programs they can also add into their routine to potentially accelerate their performance gains. And I think this is something that we really need to have some good knowledge about a couple of these really popular programs if we're going to make an informed decision on that for them. Before we dive into that topic, let's talk about a couple of upcoming course dates. So tomorrow, October 3rd and then October 4th, we've got Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete happening live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Once a year, we get together, all the fitness athlete faculty, lead faculty, and we teach together, and that is happening this weekend. I think we have one seat left if you want to grab that last second spot. And after that, the next chance to catch CMFA live is going to be October 24th and 25th. You can also go online and look at the Essential Foundations course. There is one starting in November that is filling up very, very rapidly. So check that out as well. A couple other courses coming your way in October 10th in Bozeman, Montana. We have our lumbar spine manual therapy management course happening. And then 3 courses on October 24th. There's our total spine thrust manipulation happening in Richmond, Virginia. Our lumbar spine course in Fenton, Michigan at the Health HQ headquarters there. And then our bike fit course that happens once a year will be in St. Paul, Minnesota on October 24th. So let's dive into today's topic, discussing different strength programs for the CrossFit athlete that, again, I think is important for us to understand because athletes are going to come to us asking what program they should follow. And if we don't understand what these programs entail in terms of their frequency and intensity, we're not going to be able to make an informed decision. You're also not going to be able to make an informed decision if you don't know the general programming philosophies of the gym that you're talking about. Because you may be talking to an athlete whose gym already programs incredibly high volumes of workouts, and that might be a time where you actually have a discussion with that individual on, I don't think you should add more. I think adding more is going to actually get in the way of your performance or lead to you training above that which you can recover from. So having a really good understanding of things like that is incredibly important. If those are things you don't know about the gyms around you, you need to start researching. Or if I'm just talking a foreign language here when I'm telling you to look into a CrossFit gym's programming and you don't know how to break that down to determine if it's good programming or not, then you need to jump into the Advanced Concepts course next time we host that 8-week online course. So we're going to discuss 4 different very popular strength programs. They're the 4 that I most regularly hear CrossFit athletes talk about, and kind of the positives and negatives to each of these programs so that you have a better understanding of them. Certainly there are a lot more than just these 4, but I think going with the most popular ones is going to give us the most bang for our buck. So we are going to start with the program 531. That's the name of the program, 531, created by a powerlifter by the name of Jim Wendler. I love the 531 program because it has a couple of really good variables that I think make it a great thing to add in addition to CrossFit programming. I don't think everybody needs to add extra CrossFit stuff beyond what the class does, but maybe some athletes really desire to push their strength more, or maybe they have significant deficits in their strength that they need to address. And 531 being a very low volume, slow progression program, typically isn't going to eat up too much from a recovery standpoint in our CrossFit athletes. So let me describe the program a little bit and that'll make a little bit more sense. So the program always starts off really, really light, and that's actually one of the goals of it. So instead of programming off of your true 1 rep max, you program off of what they call a training max, meaning 90% of your true max. So if your true squat 1 rep max, the best you can ever do at all out intensity is a 300-pound squat, they're going to program you off of 90% of that, so 270 pounds. They're going to then purposely progress really, really slowly with low volume. So our goal on Wendler's 531 is not to add 30 pounds to your squat in the next month. Our goal is to add 60 pounds to it in the next year through slow progressive overload. So in week 1 of this programming, they only have you do 3 sets of 5 for whatever your strength variation is that day. Set 1's going to be at 65%, set 2 75%, set 3 85%. And now keep in mind, again, this is of your training max. So actually when it says 85%, we're looking at more like 60 or 76%. for 5+ reps. So that's really low volume. 75%, most of your athletes are going to hit between 8 and 12 reps with that weight, and they're only asking you to do 5 with the option to do more. That's the 5+ if you're able. So the great thing about that is if a CrossFitter comes in and yesterday they did a really tough workout that had a lot of squat volume in it, and today they're coming in and they're supposed to be doing 5-3-1 squats, they can just hit that rep minimum of 5 and they still accomplish the goal for that day. If their legs are a little fresher, then they can go for that 5+, and maybe they take that up to as many reps as they can with that weight. But the key there is it has that buffer space for recovery when needed, and it has that low volume. So what we very frequently see happen in the CrossFit world is CrossFit gyms or CrossFit athletes themselves, they add in too much. So in the course of an hour, they're doing a strength piece every day, they're doing a metabolic conditioning piece every day, and because they're pushing in so much volume, they forget about the intensity piece. And while I think they're still working hard, if you do some really heavy squats, we all know you can't push that Metcon at 100%. You're going to have to hold back a little bit, or your intensity is going to be held back just a little bit because of that fatigue that you already have. And that's separate from the CrossFit headquarters philosophy here. The great thing about when there's 5-3-1 is that low volume, slow progressive overload is not going to get in the way of training as much as some of these other plans that we'll hear some individuals do. One of those plans that is way more on the aggressive end of the spectrum is going to be the Smolov squat cycle, which you will hear a lot of CrossFit athletes attempt. And for some fairly obvious reasons, as you'll hear in a second, you're going to see a lot of these athletes pop up in the clinic dealing with some patellar tendinopathy, dealing with some patellofemoral pain, etc. So the Smolov squat cycle is very aggressive. I'm going to kind of take you through the outline of this 13-week program. So week 1, they try to get your legs prepared for the program. And how do they do that? They have you squat 3 days in a row. Heavy 3 days in a row. Week 2 also has 3 days of squatting during that week. They're not in a row, but most athletes are squatting heavy once a week, and now Smolov is immediately going to take you to 3 days in a row. Weeks 3 through 6 takes that up to 4 days per week. So squatting 1 day 4 sets of 9, 1 day 5 sets of 7, next day 7 by 5, last day 10 by 3. So each of those days the intensity or the weight on the bar is going up, high frequency, relatively high volume there. Weeks 7 and 8 they call a deload, but actually in one of those weeks you actually still go for a PR attempt, which is kind of funny. We're going for a PR even though we're deloading. And then weeks 9 through 13 is back to squatting 3 times a week, with 44% of the total volume being at weights between 81 and 90% of that individual's maximum. So we're talking high intensity, heavy weights, high volume in the Smolov cycle, meaning it's going to be very, very difficult for a lot of our athletes to recover from. And again, I think that's why we're going to see a lot of individuals doing a program like this that aren't prepared for that volume, dealing with something popping up, tweaking their knees or something like that. And when somebody comes in and they've been doing a Smolov squat cycle, we don't need to blame the reason that they have patellofemoral pain on their glutes not activating and giving them clamshell exercises. We just need to have some serious discussions with them on load management and not doing a program that's so far and beyond what their body was prepared for. So be on the lookout for that when you talk to individuals and say, yeah, I've been working on my squat a lot lately. And they don't realize that the way they're working on their squat is with this kind of insane program from a training volume standpoint. If they're not cutting volume out somewhere else, if they're not really doing a good job with their sleep and nutrition and recovery strategies, then they're just asking for something to get tweaked with a program like that. The next one we'll commonly hear a lot of individuals get on is the Juggernaut Method. I'm a huge fan of the Juggernaut Methods program. I really like it a lot. When I took a little CrossFit break to focus on hitting some lifetime goals, weightlifting wise, I used the Juggernaut Method program and I loved it. It's going to be moderately high volume, less than Smolov for sure, more than 5-3-1 for sure. For somebody like me, I respond a little bit more to more volume at heavy weight, so it was a great program for me. But basically, the Juggernaut Method goes through a 4-month cycle. Month 1, you're hitting sets of 10, month 2, sets of 8s, then a month of 5s, then a month of 3s. And in each of those months, we see a progression of loading week by week. So over the course of the 4-week period, week 1 is going to be super high volume. Week 2, we bring down the volume a little bit more. Week 3, we bring it down a lot more. And week 3 always ends with 1 max set. So on the month of 10s, that would end with 1 by 10 plus. And so at the end of that month, after that individual does 10 reps, maybe they hit 15 reps with that weight. And so now the Juggernaut Method is going to recalculate the training max that you're working off of for the next cycle. So it's really cool to get that little month by month change in what individuals are doing based on their response. So if somebody's got that 10 plus for 15 reps, we know next month everything's going to be bumped up a little bit more aggressively. If on that week of 10s, plus that individual just got the 10 reps that they were supposed to, the prescribed weight alone, then it's going to increase the weights a little less aggressively. So that's kind of awesome to be able to regulate month by month based on that individual's response to the training. Being high volume, doing a workout, especially the first week of each month, which is usually 5 to 7 sets. So like month 1 is 5 by 10 at 40% of your 1 rep max. That's a lot of volume. Most people's legs are going to be really sore for a couple days after that amount of volume. So it is important to consider that when we look at the overall training plan there with that little bit more volume, especially compared to 5-3-1. It might be harder to work that into a CrossFit program, but it is a fairly solid program in general. The final one we'll talk about is Invictus Weightlifting. So Invictus Weightlifting is one of many different weightlifting programs out there. It's just one of the most popular ones. It comes from CrossFit Invictus, a very popular CrossFit gym, but there are certainly many others that program just like this. It is a 3-day-a-week program, and it is described as a supplemental strength program, which is kind of funny because in those 3 days, each day's programming takes about 75 minutes. So that's a lot. That's a lot to be considered just supplemental. It's meant to be your primary strength training, but they also discuss, how do you address, if you show up, if you do this Invictus weightlifting and then you go to the gym and the Metcon or the strength accessory work that your CrossFit gym is doing has deadlifts in it as well. How do you go about adjusting that volume? It includes strength, accessory, and technique work, but again, at 3 times a week for 75 minutes, this is going to be a lot of volume for somebody to recover from, and there's going to need to be some serious discussions on sleep, nutrition, recovery, adjusting the rest of the workouts during the week to match the volume and intensity that people are going to see if they do a program such as this. So there are 4 programs, so hopefully that gives you some ideas of what to recommend for individuals. A couple of things outside of that. Number 1, I do think that we're in a unique space as physical therapists that if we specialize in these performance athletes, in these fitness athletes, we can be in a very unique space where instead of recommending a program like one of these, we can go to that individual and offer to program for them instead. Because if they're coming to you and you're taking a look at their back squat and their front squat and their deadlift, and you're looking at those ratios, you're looking at their technique, a lot of times you can identify that individual's specific strengths and weaknesses, and maybe you can then go about programming a workout that addresses what they need more so than what they don't. If you're really tied into the CrossFit community around you, then you should know what the gym they go to. What is that gym programmed to? What's their biases towards? And a lot of times you can fill those gaps in the programming that individual doesn't normally train, as well as addressing their specific weaknesses. And so often, being that fine-tuned and detailed for an individual can lead to some really rapid improvements in their performance. And that can be a great way to offer a cash-based service to you. Now, you have to be really dialed in on this stuff though. Like if you've never done it before, if you don't have experience with this, if you don't understand how to program at a high level, please don't do it because it's not going to go very well for you. But if you're experienced with that, if you've gone through the fitness athlete courses, then I would say that this is a great cash-based thing to look into doing more of. For instance, for my own personal strength training program, Kelsey Kramer, who's one of our PTs here at Onward Charlotte, she programs strength accessory work for me because she knows my strengths and weaknesses. She knows my gym's programming biases, and so she does that for me because I'm not the greatest at programming for myself because I only program what I want to do, not what I need to do. But a couple other keys that we need to talk about. Anytime you're adding an accessory strength training program for the fitness athlete, it's all going to be about load management. How do we slowly build upon what they've done? If they're only used to squatting once a week, that's not jump immediately into a small off cycle where you're squatting at high intensity, high volume, high frequency, 3 times a week. You also have to have some really good discussions with the CrossFit athletes about understanding how to incorporate this in their weekly class schedule. If they show up to the Metcon on Monday, and Monday's Metcon is Diane that has 45 reps of deadlifts at 225, and they were supposed to do their heavy deadlifts on Tuesday, where they're doing, 5 sets of 5 deadlifts on Tuesday, what do you need to do there? Do you need to move that deadlift day? Do you need to adjust the percentages? Do they need to adjust the Metcon? You have to be able to have these discussions with them so that they're not continually overloading the same movement patterns over and over. So make sure you're on top of recovery, nutrition, and load management strategies with these athletes if you're adding in strength accessory work. So I hope that gives you some insight into what we think about from a strength accessory standpoint here in the fitness athlete division. As always, please reach out to us with requests for future episodes, and we hope to see you at some upcoming courses. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.